Good evening, petrol heads. Welcome to a program dedicated to a brand that makes even a German engineer weep with envy. We're diving headfirst into the opulent, handcrafted world of Rolls-Royce motorcars. Forget your Econobox hatchbacks and forget your sensible family saloons. Today we're talking about a company that doesn't build cars. They build automotive masterpieces. We'll be taking a luxurious cruise through the history of Rolls-Royce, gawking at their most iconic models and uncovering the stories of the blokes who dared to dream of such automotive perfection. And because every good adventure needs some competition, we'll be throwing some trivia your way. That's right, get ready to test your knowledge of all things Rolls-Royce with not one, not two, but a whopping 15 trivia questions. So, buckle up, grab a glass of something bubbly. We recommend it's chilled, darling. And prepare to be amazed by the legacy of luxury that is Rolls-Royce. Now, some might say starting a car company in 1904, when horses were still considered a viable mode of transport, was a bit of a gamble. But then again, Charles Rolls and Henry Royce weren't some people. They envisioned a world where cars weren't just noisy, smelly contraptions, but things of beauty, power, and unrivaled craftsmanship. Rolls-Royce started in a little place in Manchester, a city known more for its rain than its luxury cars, mind you. But from these humble beginnings, they set out to create the best car in the world. And let's be honest, they weren't wrong. Their early models, like the 10 horsepower and the Silver Ghost, quickly gained a reputation for reliability and performance. I mean, we're talking about a time when a car breaking down was about as common as finding a decent cuppa in France. Now let's talk about the men behind the machines. Charles Rolls, a bit of an adrenaline junkie, loved speed, adventure, and frankly, anything that could get him into trouble with his aristocratic family. Henry Royce, on the other hand, was a meticulous engineer, obsessed with precision and detail. He probably wouldn't say a whole sentence if a comma was out of place. You wouldn't think these two would get along, let alone start one of the most iconic car companies in history. It's a bit like trying to mix oil and water, or perhaps a good pint of bitter with champagne. But somehow their differences became their strengths. Rolls, with his connections and business acumen, knew how to sell luxury and exclusivity. And Royce? Well, he knew how to build a car that wouldn't rattle apart after a good bump in the road, which was quite a feat in those days. So, we've talked about Rolls-Royce, this magnificent beast of a company. But what about the man, Charles Rolls himself? A right adventurous soul he was, not content with just building cars. Oh no, Rolls had to take to the skies. Now, back then, flying was about as safe as wrestling a rabid badger in a telephone booth. Those early contraptions were basically wicker baskets held together with hope and string. Did that stop our man Rolls? Did it heck? He was the first Brit to earn his pilot's license, which back then probably involved little more than drawing a bird on a napkin and promising not to crash into the Queen. But here's the kicker, the tragic bit. In 1910, Rolls went and did just that, crashed his Wright Flyer. A pioneer to the end, he became the first Brit to die in a plane crash. Sad, yes, but what a way to go, eh? Living life on the edge, right up to the very last. A true testament to the spirit of pushing boundaries, much like the company he founded. Right, let's talk motors. And when I say motors, I mean the kind that make your heart thump like a Metallica concert in your chest. We're talking about some of the most iconic Rolls-Royce models ever to grace the tarmac. First up, the Silver Ghost. This beauty, launched in 1906, was so smooth, so quiet, they called it the Silver Ghost. It was like a phantom gliding down the road, leaving nothing but whispers in its wake. Then you've got the Phantom. Now we're talking serious luxury here. This car is like a palace on wheels, with enough leather and wood to make a rainforest jealous. It's the kind of car that makes you want to put on your best suit just to sit in it. And who can forget the dawn? This drop-head coupe is the epitome of elegance. Imagine cruising along the French Riviera, top down, wind in your hair, a bottle of champagne chilling in the back. Makes you want to buy a yacht and grow a really impressive moustache, doesn't it? Now, I've driven my fair share of fancy cars in my time, but there's one Rolls-Royce that holds a special place in my heart, the Corniche 3. This car, my friends, is what happens when you take British craftsmanship, Italian styling and a whole lot of horsepower and mix them all together in a very expensive cocktail shaker. First introduced in the 70s, the Corniche just oozes class. It's the kind of car that makes you want to wear a silk scarf and speak with a posh accent, even if you're just nipping out for a pint of milk. And the sound of that engine, it's like a lion, purring, a symphony of power and refinement. You could drive this car across the Sahara Desert and arrive feeling like you've just stepped out of a spa day. But what truly sets the Corniche, the 3, apart is its rarity. They only made a handful of these beauties, which makes them rarer than a sober Irishman on St. Patrick's Day. Now, 1932, that was a good year. 1932 also gave us a proper Rolls-Royce, a car so magnificent, so opulent, it makes a modern Bentley look like a bloody Vauxhall Corsa. We're talking, of course, about the Phantom II Continental. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement. A statement that said, I've got more money than you and I know how to spend it. Under the hood you'd find a gargantuan 7.7-litre straight-six engine, something that wouldn't look out of place powering a small yacht. And the power it produced, well, let's just say it was more than enough to make those flimsy little Austin 7s scatter like startled pigeons. But the real beauty of the Phantom II Continental wasn't just about raw power, oh no. It was about the craftsmanship, the attention to detail, the sheer bloody-mindedness of it all. They just don't make them like this anymore, do they? A travesty, I tell you. A bloody travesty. Now, I've had the pleasure, or perhaps misfortune, depending on how you look at it, of driving some right corkers in my time, but there's one car, one particular Rolls-Royce, that sticks in my memory. My aunt's Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 2. She let me borrow it for my sister's wedding. It was perfect. It glided along the road like a hovercraft on a sea of champagne, all hushed reverence and wafting exhaust fumes. I imagine the bride arrived feeling like royalty, though knowing weddings, she'd probably spent the whole journey worrying about her bloody dress getting crumpled. Still, a memorable day out, even if I did have to listen to the groom's terrible jokes all afternoon. Right, enough reminiscing about old bangers. Time for a bit of a history lesson. And because I'm not one for boring lectures, we'll do this quiz show style. So, hands on buzzers, if you've got one, and get ready for your first question. When was the legendary partnership of Rolls-Royce officially formed? Was it A, 1904? A fine vintage for both cars and wine. B, 1910, just in time for the roaring 20s. C, 1906, a bit early, weren't they? D, 1915, right in the middle of the Great War. How patriotic. Think carefully, you wouldn't want to get this wrong. I'll give you a moment to ponder. And the answer is, of course, A, 1904. Well done to those who got it right. You clearly know a thing or two about automotive history. As for the rest of you, well, pay attention. There's more where that came from. Right, question 2, and listen carefully because this one's a real humdinger. What was the most expensive Rolls-Royce ever to be created? Was it A, a 2023 boat tail, a bespoke creation so exclusive they only made 3? B, the Queen's Rolls-Royce Phantom. C, Princess Margaret's exclusive Phantom 4-4, one of only 18 ever made. D, the Sultan of Brunei's bespoke gold-plated limousine. If you answered A, the 2023 boat tail, give yourself a pat on the back. This masterpiece fetched a whopping £20 million at auction. What pivotal event brought Rolls and Royce together? Was it A, the Great Exhibition of 1851? B, a chance encounter at a London club? C, the 1903 Isle of Man Tourist Trophy? D, a shared advertisement in the Times newspaper? The answer is C, the 1903 Isle of Man Tourist Trophy. Rolls saw the potential of Royce's engineering genius. The rest is history, written in chrome and leather. All right, question 4 for you petrol heads out there. What groundbreaking innovation did Rolls-Royce unleash in 1919? Was it A, power steering, B, the Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament, C, the V12 engine, or D, a built-in radio? Time to put your thinking caps on. 5 seconds on the clock starting now. And the answer is B, the Spirit of Ecstasy. This iconic mascot became synonymous with Rolls-Royce, a symbol of luxury and aspiration. Right, enough about carburetors and coach building. Let's see how much you know about Rolls-Royce when it comes to the glamorous world of, well, everything else. Next question, and I must say this one is a real humdinger, is about Rolls-Royces in popular culture, because nothing says I've arrived like rocking up in one of these beauties. They've featured in more films, songs and books than a certain hamster has had hot dinners. So which one of these fine examples of the silver screen has featured a Rolls-Royce? Is it A, Goldfinger, with Sean Connery making a DB5 look common? B, The Great Gatsby, because nothing says old money like a vintage roller? C, Titanic, with Leo and Kate probably wishing they'd stayed in the car? Or D, The Italian Job, with Michael Caine's lads nicking a few quids worth of gold bullion? Think carefully, you wouldn't want to stall on this one. Get it right, you're a potential owner. Get it wrong, well, you're probably stuck with a Reliant Robin. Let's move on and see if you're a high roller or just a roller skate. The answer is, of course, D, The Italian Job. Now, we all know Rolls-Royce is the king of luxury. I mean, have you seen the carpets in these things? You could lose a small child in the shag pile. So, for our next question, let's dive into the sumptuous world of Rolls-Royce luxury features. Which of these is a real feature you can get in a roller? Is it A, a built-in humidor for those times when a cigar is the only thing that will do? B, a starlight headliner because who needs to look at the actual sky? C, a self-filling champagne cooler because reaching for a bottle is so last year? Or D, ejector seats just in case your chauffeur gets a bit uppity? I mean, some of these might seem a bit far-fetched, but trust me, when it comes to Rolls-Royce, the only limit is your imagination. And probably your bank balance. Take a moment, ponder, and choose wisely. All right, time's up. If you chose D, ejector seats, you're absolutely right. Although, now that I think about it, that's not a bad idea for a future upgrade, is it? Right then, petrol heads. Time for a real test of your knowledge. This one's about what's going on under the hood of these magnificent machines, specifically the engines. We all know Rolls-Royce engines are as smooth as a freshly paved autobahn. But do you know which of these is not an actual Rolls-Royce engine designation? Is it A, the Merlin, B, the Griffon, C, the Pegasus, or D, the Wyvern? I'll give you a moment to ponder. You know, like when you're pretending to appreciate modern art, just staring blankly and nodding. Got your answer? Good, because the answer is D, the Wyvern. While Merlin, Griffon and Pegasus all sound like they could power a mythical beast of a car, Wyvern was an engine built by our friends across the channel, the French company Nomron. Now let's talk about the future, because even a company with a history as long and illustrious as Rolls-Royce can't just keep polishing monocles and reminiscing about the good old days of coach building. They've got to move with the times, embrace the future, even if it means something as untoward as electric power. So here's your question. What is the name of Rolls-Royce's first fully electric vehicle? Is it A, the silent running, B, the Electron, C, the Spectre, or D, the Faraday Cage? Think carefully. It's got to be a name that whispers wealth and exclusivity, but also hints at the silent, almost ghostly power lurking beneath that sculpted hood. And the answer is C, the Spectre. Rolls-Royce Spectre, Rolls-Royce bloody Spectre. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, does it? But then, neither does £200,000 for a car, and people seem to manage that just fine. Well, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of the world of Rolls-Royce, from its humble beginnings in a Manchester workshop to its current status as the pinnacle of automotive luxury. We've covered history, we've tackled trivia, we've even dared to look into the electric future. I hope you found it all terribly entertaining. Don't forget to like, subscribe and ring that bell harder than a chauffeur summoning a waiter for more automotive adventures. Until next time, chaps.